What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the hater. It's Friday night. I'm outside, so that could only mean one thing and one thing only, and that is Friday night review for Smackdown as well as Hater Outdoors. All right, let's get to it. Now, as we're going to go over the show segment by segment as we usually do, I'm going to review every segment. However, there are some shows where even though the majority of the show is garbage, like today, sometimes one or two segments can elevate the show all the way to an excellent show, which is what this was. But before we get to that, let's get to the parts that sucked in chronological order. And these parts sucked bad, right? It's only because the last segment or so, it was several segments, I suppose, it's only because that was so excellent that this show is going to get a rare 10 out of 10, right? We're not even going to average it out because sometimes the segment is so excellent. Like, for example, if you have like a mediocre show, but somehow the main event becomes like, you know, The Rock versus Stone Cold, right? Then it doesn't matter if like in the beginning, you know, the Wyatt Six attacked Otis. You know what I mean? Nobody would care about that. The part that's good elevates the rest of the show. But let's go through the whole show. The show starts out, Randy Orton comes out just looking bigger than ever, right? He comes out to the ring, and basically he says he needs to talk to Triple H because Triple H is the guy that can make the match since Nick Aldis refused to do so. They go backstage to Triple H. For some reason, there's a camera there, right? Just looking at Triple H, maybe the guy ran back, who knows? And Triple H is sitting in Vince McMahon's seat. This is dumb, right? The way I would have done it is Triple H should just be hanging around the back. Like, when Vince McMahon was in charge, even though he was producing the segments, right, he wasn't presented like that, right? He was just, you know, walking around backstage, like getting his ass buffed and like ruining people's lives for no reason backstage in kayfabe and perhaps in real life as well, right? So this is a lame way to portray Triple H, but it was what it was. Triple H eventually comes out very quickly, might I add, which is good because we don't have time to waste, right? And he berates Orton for being late. He was overly difficult with Orton for no reason whatsoever, but this is Triple H, this is Orton. They have history. They didn't talk about the history, but it's understandable that he wouldn't be like totally on board with Orton. Orton basically says that Triple H is protecting Kevin Owens from Orton. Triple H says the match is not happening. Orton says you're protecting Kevin Owens. Triple H says the match is not happening. And after this back and forth goes on for another 8 or 9 back and forths, right? Triple H eventually says the predictable, I'm trying to protect you from Orton, which is ridiculous. It's almost laughable, right? Kevin Owens is a mid-card nobody. Randy Orton is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, both in reality and in kayfabe, right? Kevin Owens is not on the same level of Orton, right? Even if you didn't know who they were, you'd be like, no, that's just silly. Randy Orton would butcher this guy in 3 seconds, right? Kevin Owens looks like he's never lifted a weight in his life. Randy Orton looks like he's been going to the gym every day of his life, right? And he probably has. So basically, Triple H says that this new Kevin Owens is more dangerous because I see something in his eye, right? At this point, I would have liked to see Randy Orton just RKO Triple H in the middle of the ring and then just punt him right in the head, right? That would have been a good way to continue the segment, to kind of establish Randy Orton as being not a cuck, right? But instead of doing that, they went a different direction. And the direction they went in was that he is a cuck. So basically, Orton just begs Triple H. Triple H tells him, hey, like, you've been back for like 18 months, or you've been gone for 18 months and you just got back. No, he didn't just get back. He got back a year ago, you know? And quite frankly, all things considered, Randy Orton has wrestled relatively consistently by today's standards, right? Like Randy Orton has wrestled at nearly every pay-per-view. He's had a few matches on SmackDown. He's wrestled more frequently than Cody Rhodes and Gunter, you know? So this idea that like, oh, this may be the end of his career is silly, right? Because he's still Randy Orton, you know what I mean? Plus, furthermore, it's like, why doesn't he protect other people from Kevin Owens? Kevin Owens gets put in matches with Grayson Waller like all the time, and nobody cares about Grayson Waller being hurt by Kevin Owens, or perhaps even worse, nobody cares about other people in the past being hurt by Kevin Owens when he was powerbombing people onto the apron. You know, all of a sudden now is when people care about Kevin Owens. This is really dumb. Terrible writing. But basically, Randy Orton gives an impassioned speech saying that I want Triple H, not Paul Levesque. You know, the guy that used to come out with a leather jacket, not a suit. Sans the tie, he says, right? And then Triple H is basically compelled to do it, and he's like, take care of yourself, Randy, whatever, right? This was really dumb. It was a complete waste of time. The match is like next week. So like the build-up for this match has been zero. But you don't need massive build-up for this match because it's a throwaway match. And that's one of the biggest criticisms that I had of this segment and of this feud altogether, right? They're acting like this is like some Hell in a Cell match. Randy Orton came back right after his injury in a War Games match where you could theoretically die, right? And now Triple H is like, oh, I don't want you to be in a singles match with Owens. You know during the match, there's going to be a point where Kevin Owens tries to roll up Orton, right? You know what I mean? Like, so Kevin Owens is not going to go and be like, I'm going to kill this guy, right? Even if Kevin Owens wins, he might even injure Randy Orton at this point, the way it's looking. But this is not like this big-time match that everyone's looking forward to, right? This is like the opening match probably, or the second match. You know what I mean? This is not like any kind of match that anybody like cares about, like for real, right? So, you know, like they give it too much time for what it was, right? But it was what it was. I will admit that I thought that Triple H was going to say no, but given that the pay-per-view is next week, I forgot that it's next week, he didn't have time to say no, right? If they had this conversation 5 weeks ago, he would have said no until today. So, you know, like that's just how the wrestling format is now. You know, you make the match very late, but whatever, you know. I guess some people care about this match. I personally don't. Next up, we have Game 7. Of course, by Game 7, we mean Carmelo Hayes versus Andrade for the 7th time, right? Because Andrade has like an NBA-adjacent, like, personality, not even a gimmick, right? But like in NXT, they would have like the jerseys come down. You know, he's all about like, I'm going to shoot my shot. Melo don't miss. Nothing but net is the name of his finisher, right? He's like this, I don't even know what the logic is, but he's like this NBA-esque guy. I don't get it, to be honest. But, so therefore, it's Game 7. The stipulation here is that LA Knight is the special guest referee. Now, I'm going to be honest. I skipped to the end of this match because I had no interest in watching it because I knew that it was going to be an inconclusive win. An inconclusive match. Nobody was going to win, right? That's exactly what happened. Basically, LA Knight hits the BFT on both of them, goes on top of the announce table, cuts a great promo basically saying, like, it doesn't matter which one of you was going to win, right? Because the only winner here is LA Knight, and I'm the only one that matters out of us three because I'm the United States champion, with everybody saying, LA Knight, yeah, and the whole crowd goes crazy for LA Knight. So basically, even though Corey Graves and Michael Cole are like, he ruined the match, it's like nobody cares about the match. You know, nobody cares. Like, if Stone Cold comes out in the middle of a Spike Dudley Crash Holly match, and he stuns them both and picks up the mic, right? Yeah, he ruined the match, but nobody cares because Stone Cold has the mic now. You're about to be entertained. This is exactly what happened here, you know? But he did ruin the match. Hopefully, we don't do another Game 7 at some point because that's enough of this. You know what I mean? The series was tied at 3. The last game was a draw, and it ended because LA Knight destroyed them both, so who cares, right? It should be noted that before the match was essentially ruined by LA Knight, Carmelo had kind of Andrade pinned, right? Carmelo's legs were under the rope, which wouldn't count as a real pin, but nevertheless, he was the one that was on top. So, okay, good for him, right? Whatever. Then we go on to our Tiffany Stratton segment. She's back, and she says, like, yo, Nia, I'm back now, but Nia's like, no worries. I got Candace Laray to replace you as my, like, go-to girl, basically, right? So as a result, we get Naomi versus Candace Laray. Sorry for the cough. The hater's been smoking a lot, and I've been sleeping with, like, the window open and the fan on, and I have, like, my throat kind of hurts. But I'll live. The hater almost never gets sick. Knock on wood, cuckolds. Let's knock on this tree right next to me and pin this bitch, yeah? So this segment was short and sweet, right? And then we get a clip of that, the Smackdown music, the 1, 2, 3, 4, da-da-da-da-da-da, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's like, who the fuck commissioned this song? It's like one of the worst songs of all time. But anyways, we hear that obviously throughout the night, but for some reason, the hater hasn't pointed it out yet, but I hate that song. After this segment, they show LA Knight leaving the arena. Nick Aldis says, you know, you screwed it up, right? Nick Aldis has the right to be upset, right? The fans don't care, but Nick Aldis, this is his job in kayfabe. So he's like, what are you doing ruining the match? Triple threat match at Crown Jewel, which we all knew was going to happen anyways, right? Hopefully LA Knight wins, only because I don't want any of these two other guys to have any kind of championship glory. But if, let's say, Carmelo is to become the U.S. champion, I think it's time to move LA Knight to the main event, right? And seriously make him a main eventer. He can go and he can even lose to Cookie Rhodes, but he could still be a main eventer. Because one day he needs to be the champion because he's far more over than Cody Rhodes ever will be. Next, we finally get the match, Naomi versus Candace. The match ends with Naomi hitting the Bubba Bomb on Candace after Bayley causes a distraction, therefore continuing the Bayley-Naomi versus Nia Jax feud with Tiffany Stratton still in there in the mix, right? Basically, nothing happened here. Nothing was advanced. It was a complete disaster. Thus far, everything that we've seen has been a colossal 0 out of 10, except for LA Knight's promo, which was obviously a 10 out of 10. But the match itself, it's stupid because we know what's going to happen. Now, it's time for the second hour, right? So the first hour was completely uneventful, and the beginning of the second hour was by far the worst part of the show. And honestly, by the time I'm done with this review, this show might get knocked down to an 8 out of 10, only because this was one of the worst segments in history. I cannot overstate how much I hated this Cody Rhodes Gunter in-ring segment. It was the worst thing ever because number one, we've seen it like 3 times now. Number two, it was full of lies once again. And number three, nobody cared about any of these two guys, right? Like, yes, Cody Rhodes gets the pop when they go, whoa, but when they were talking, nobody really cared. You know, because how can you care about these two nobodies? But basically, let's summarize what happened. Cody comes out right before the whoa part of his entrance music. Gunter's theme hits. They go in the ring and Gunter says, what do you want to talk about? And everyone goes oh, like as if Gunter stole like a valuable catchphrase. It's one of the worst catchphrases of all time. It's so bad that it's like you wouldn't even think of it as a catchphrase. Cody then just asks Gunter, like basically he invited Gunter to Smackdown. This is the logic, to ask him why Gunter thinks he will win. I mean, this is already like asked and answered, as we would say in the law. Gunter has been saying for years now that he's the best. So of course, if you think you're the best, you think you're gonna win. What is Gunter, supposed to say? I think I'm going to lose, like Tony D'Angelo in NXT? Doesn't make any sense. So basically says that. Gunter says it's unnecessary for Cody to mention his daughter in last week's promo. This was an underrated point, right? And it was one of the highlights of this otherwise complete garbage in-ring segment, right? Gunter's right. Why are you talking about your daughter? Gunter basically says, I don't need to do it for my daughter. I'm doing it for myself. Right? That's a much more compelling reason than Cody Rhodes saying, I did it for my daughter. Who are you doing it for? Myself. What the fuck? You know what I'm saying? I want to be the champion. I want to prove that I'm the better guy. That's the point of wrestling, right? In kayfabe, the point is everyone should want to be the best. Gunter wants to be the best, so that's why he's doing it. I mean, it's such a stupid question. You know what I mean? Why do you think you're going to win? Because I think I'm better than you, right? Nobody asks this to anybody else in any other sport. You don't sit down with like LeBron and say, hey, do you think the Lakers are going to win the championship? He's going to say, yes, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be playing for them. I think we have a great chance, right? He'd be like, why do you think you're going to win? Well, I think we're the better team, right? He might say something else. He might dress it up as something else. But it's always going to come down to, I think we're better, right? So this is really, really dumb for that reason. Then it gets even worse, guys. Gunter starts lying and says that Cody asked for the Cena schedule, right? Now, what Gunter was talking about and what this promo devolved into was about like the media appearances, right? These media appearances are not mainstream, so nobody notices when they happen, right? Sometimes in WWE.com, they'd be like, oh, Cena granted another wish. But that's about it. Like Cody nor Gunter are mainstream guys, right? And the reason why Gunter doesn't do this is because nobody could possibly interview Gunter in a late night TV and do it again because they'd be bored out of their minds the first time. So basically at this point, your boy is just hoping that either Brock Lesnar or Goldberg somehow comes out and just destroys both of these guys and just takes the title and just throws it away. You know what I mean? That's what I would like to have happen, right? Then they keep this nonsense going, right? They're lucky, as far as I'm concerned, Gunter and Cody are lucky that it seems like Roman Reigns has no interest in going to Saudi Arabia. Because if he did, they'd be the opening match. Because nobody cares about this. Nobody cares about the crown stool title. Nobody cares at all. Cody basically, at some point, admits that his family is a bunch of drama queens. He says, have you seen my brother? Have you seen me? Yeah, our fans, or my fans basically, right? They call them the Cody crybabies because they can be dramatic, but they can also drop a man. No, they can't. What are you talking about? Shut your mouth. You said it right the first time. He tried to overcompensate. The fact is that Cody's a pussy. He admitted it, and he basically called all the fans a bunch of pussies. He basically accepted that the Cody crybabies are an appropriate moniker, or is an appropriate moniker, I should say, for his fan base, which was really, really weak and really, really stupid. I don't think he thought it through. He just stumbled his words because he's not good at promos. But that's what happened. Gunter then lies again and says he's the workhorse, right? He also mentions that Cody Rhodes has the Cena schedule. No. So the implications of having the Cena schedule, quote unquote, is also that you wrestle on a weekly basis, which Cody Rhodes does not do. So fuck out of here with that bullshit, right? Then Cody says that Gunter is not the in-ring general, right? And this is important because I know I've been harping on about this segment for a while now, but it's important that everyone understands how shit this segment was. Cody says, and this happens within like 45 seconds, Cody basically says Gunter isn't a general because he doesn't lead anyone. Then after this, like Cody says, I have guts, and attacks Gunter for no reason, right? Gunter was there having a civil conversation with him, relatively speaking, and Cody says, I'll show you guts by ending the civil conversation and attacking you. Then he cheap shots Gunter, drops down and does a little upwards Cody punch thing when he drops on his back and he punches the guy upwards, right? Ludwig Kaiser comes out, right? So here's where it gets weird. Ludwig comes out, and then basically attacks Cody Rhodes, obviously, right? Gunter and Ludwig are beating Cody Rhodes, and Michael Cole tells us that Gunter is leading the attack. Cody Rhodes just said, you're not a general because you don't lead anyone. 20 seconds later, Michael Cole says Gunter's leading the attack. So the writing of this is complete disasters. It's just complete garbage. Whoever decide, like this is why you need Triple H to go away, and you need either Vince McMahon or a Vince McMahon, someone like that, to be in Michael Cole's ear, so that Michael Cole doesn't say dumb shit like this. Look at Michael Cole, he's having fun, guys. He's completely contradicting what's happening. Like Cody Rhodes, and the writing too, right? Cody Rhodes is like, you don't lead anybody. Then the follower of Gunter comes, and Gunter leads him into beating Cody Rhodes' ass. Then Michael Cole says, oh, he's leading him. At least Vince McMahon would have said, don't say he's leading him, just talk about how it's cheap, right? Which Michael Cole does anyways. But that's stupid because it's not cheap, because Cody attacked him first. So yeah, like if someone punches my friend in the face for no reason, I'm going to attack that guy, right? And I'm going to do it to defend my friend. This is actually not only not a cheap shot, but it is a completely justifiable legal defense called defense of others. But anyways, more on that another time, cuckolds. Then Randy Orton comes and saves him. And then Cole keeps telling us, oh, it's so cheap. Randy Orton saved him, but like they were 2-on-1 in Cody. Yeah, Cody attacked him first. What is Gunter supposed to do? Just take the beating? What is Ludwig Kaiser supposed to do? Just have his friend get his ass beat? No, right? For some reason, this only applies to the faces and not to the heels, but whatever, right? This was one of the worst segments of all time. I couldn't be less interested in this match than I am right now. I don't care at all. I sincerely hope that this match is first so I can skip it when I watch Crown Stool, because I'm going to watch it just to review it for you guys. But if I could skip this match, I would love that. But now, they show what happened on Raw with the Jey Uso storyline, right? It seems to me now that the story is focused more on Solo Sikoa versus Jey Uso. Doesn't it feel that way a little bit? Doesn't it feel like Jey Uso is the real tribal chief almost, right? He's the one that's carried like the ball. You know, Solo Sikoa is trying to carry the ball, but Jey Uso did. And Jey Uso had more success than Solo Sikoa because he actually won a title during this time, which is another reason why Jey Uso's Intercontinental title run was better than that of Gunter. So they show us this again, and nobody cares because we've already seen it on Raw, right? As a result of weeks and weeks of bullshit, it's revealed to us that at Crown Jewel, we're going to have a fatal four-way for the women's titles. Nobody cares at all. And all the women are backstage. They all look like varying levels of strippers. They just all look like skanks. It's like none of them have any like class. They're all wearing this like flashy clothing, right? And they all just have like too much makeup on, and they all look weird, and they all kind of look like gross. I don't know how to explain it, right? But back in the day, you had women with some modicum of class, right? Like Stacey Keibler was a hot girl, right? But she would sometimes dress as a secretary. A sexy secretary, I concede, but you could see, like Tori Wilson, for example, was presented as a classy broad, right? She wasn't presented as a prostitute. but the way these girls look, and this is part of like the costume design. I'm not like hating on them, right? They all just look like streetwalkers to me, but that's neither here nor there. Let's move on to the main event match, or so we thought it was the main event match. This I'm going to treat as one big segment because that's what it turned out to be. DIY comes out and they're going to wrestle the Motor City Machine Guns. The entire match is presented basically as 4 indie jobbers. During the match, Michael Cole harkens back to like the trouble that Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa have had in the past. Vince McMahon, if he was in Cole's ear, would have said, don't say this, like, because it's stupid, right? Now they're presented as friends, you know? And then Corey Graves is forced to cover for Michael, and he's like, yeah, but sometimes, like, the mutual goal of becoming tag team champions makes the bonds of respect, you know, some bullshit like that. They're presented as being best friends. DIY are not presented as this, like, these two guys that hate each other that are trying to become tag team champions. They're presented as having gotten over their past issues, right? But Michael Cole brings it up for no reason. Vince McMahon would have made sure this didn't happen, and Michael Cole would have done a better job today if Vince was in his ear, which proves once and for all that Michael Cole sucks at his job. Nevertheless, the match goes on. It's a pretty decent match, right? I watched it in its entirety because I like the Motor City Machine Guns, and it's only their second match. They hit the Skull and Bones, which I'm pretty sure used to be called the Skull and Crossbones back in the day. Now it's a Skull and Bones, which is the little neck breaker into the splash, right? Decent finisher, good match. They predictably become the number 1 contenders. DIY is leaving the ring. Ciampa is mad because Gargano super kicked him in the face. If they have another Gargano-Ciampa like fallout, it should happen in NXT. And as soon as the feud ends, they should both be released, right? Nobody cares about this anymore, right? Neither Gargano nor Ciampa were able to get over with the mainstream audience. They're not good enough, and it's time to let go of them, right? The alternative is keep them employed, which is what I would prefer because I don't want anybody to get fired, and just have them be tag team jobbers like they are. But if they even start thinking about another feud between the two, nobody's going to care. So maybe they could go wrestle on like, and you know, WWE Speed or whatever the fuck that shit is, right? Then, as a result of all of this, the Bloodline comes out because it's the almost the end of the show, and they happen to be the tag team champions. They come out, and basically Solo says, you know, first I should say, they come out and we cut the commercial. So I'm thinking, all right, the Motor City Machine Guns are going to be gone. You know? No, they're still in the ring after the commercial, and so is Nick Aldis. Basically, they introduce themselves to each other, and Solo says, oh, you want a title shot whenever? Well, how about tonight? Nick Aldis says, no, they just had a match, blah, blah, blah. It should be noted also that Nick Aldis is about 1.5 feet taller than everybody there. Like, in real life, Nick Aldis would probably beat the shit out of all these guys. And he's more athletic, he's better looking, he's better on the mic. He's so much better than everybody else involved here that it's almost a shame that he's like in the position he's in. He's also younger than like half these guys. Nick Aldis is still in his 30s, right? Solo Sikoa is also in his 30s, he's young, but like Tangaloa and Tama Tonga, they're like in their 40s. Why are they even wrestling? But anyways, whatever, right? Long story short, Alex Shelley says, no, we'll have the match tonight. They have the match, so now the question becomes, which one of these two things is going to happen? There's only two possibilities. One, the Tongans, I should say, are going to beat and retain, right? Or Roman Reigns and friends are going to interfere. Hell, you don't even need Roman Reigns. But it's basically the question is, will Jey Uso come from Raw and do to them what they did to him on Monday, right? The answer becomes clearly a yes when the first Uso comes out masked. I don't know why the Usos, when they do these interferences, they come out masked. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Number one, they always take off the mask, so there's no mystique as to who they are. Number two, there's no need for them to hide who they are because they're clearly in a feud with Solo Sikoa. Number three, after Jey Uso comes and does like a super kick, Roman Reigns' music hits. Roman Reigns, by virtue of being a star, doesn't come out with a mask. He comes out full-blown entrance, right? He Superman punches Jacob Fatu. The four of them start wrestling. They go outside of the arena, right? Now there's a ref bump, and basically the Tongans are going to go get chairs. Jey Uso comes out also wearing a mask. It's really dumb. It's so dumb, in fact, that even Michael Cole and Corey Graves have to be like, this is clearly Jey Uso, you know what I mean? It's like, remember in TNA when Jeff Hardy was repackaged as Willow, and like the announcers just couldn't? They're like, this is clearly Jeff Hardy, and he has an alter ego? Because it was so obviously Jeff Hardy. He sees tattoos, right? The only thing that was different was he had a mask on. He even had the little towel that he has hanging from his back pocket. You know, it's the same thing. So anyways, this shit goes down the way it goes down. And basically, long story short, Jey Uso hits a spear on Tama Tonga, I think. And then the Machine Guns hit the Skull and Bones on him, and they become the new tag team champions. But the segment is not over. After all this shit goes down, the Machine Guns leave, fireworks go off for them, and then Jimmy Uso comes out, and him and Jay hug it out. Now, I thought this was an excellent segment overall. The primary reason why it was an excellent segment, in my personal opinion, is very evident, right? Number one, we have a Usos reunion. Now, we all knew this was going to happen, but nevertheless, when it happens, it does feel like a wrestling moment, right? It's just like we all knew that, for example, the Hardy Boys would one day unite and that the Dudley Boys would one day unite. But when it happened, it felt better, right? It felt good. It's like, yeah, that's the thing that I want to see. Now, granted, the Usos are not as good as the Hardy Boys or the Dudley Boys, but nevertheless, it was a wrestling moment because they had a very acrimonious fallout, right? Now, the show ends with Roman Reigns on the ramp, basically like not sure whether you can trust Jay or whatever, right? Who cares? The point is, now the old bloodline, like the Roman Reigns and Usos bloodline, needs to be presented as three equals, because it would make no sense, for example, for Roman Reigns to ask Jay to acknowledge him, right? That would make no sense. That would be stupid, right? Roman Reigns should have learned from the error of his ways, and he should learn from what Solo Sikoa is doing, that acting this way is not appropriate with your family or, quite frankly, with anybody else. But now the situation has turned, right? And this storyline is becoming slightly compelling again. But as I said, I think the leader now should be Jey Uso. I know it's not going to happen. Obviously, this is Roman Reigns' storyline. But he's dropped the ball so much, and Jey has ran the ball so much that, I think Jey deserves it more. This segment was presented as Jey Uso getting his revenge, because it's exactly what they did to him on Monday, right? They cost him his title. He cost them their titles, right? This is just like, an eye for an eye, right? And it makes perfect sense. And they should have expected it. And they should have, planned for it, I suppose. Now, if this didn't happen, right, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but if this didn't happen, and basically this was just a segment where, the Tongans beat Motor City Machine Guns without any kind of presence from Roman Reigns or the Usos, then it would be over. Then it would be like, this would become the worst feud of all time. Because the logical, next step is that what the new bloodline did to Roman and the Usos, they need to pay that back, right? They've been kicking Roman's ass for weeks. They just cost Jey the title. So now, an eye for an eye, right? This makes the upcoming feud, which I'm assuming is going to semi-conclude, if not hopefully fully conclude, at Survivor Series, right? Maybe it'll conclude for Roman Reigns, and then maybe Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu can wrestle the Usos. You know what I mean? That might be a way to continue it if they must, right? But because that would be not a decent WrestleMania match, but the logical WrestleMania match for the Usos is their return as a tag team to win the tag team titles, right? That's what makes the most sense, but that's a long ways away. WrestleMania is far away, Cucks, so who the hell knows what's going to happen. But overall, I thought that this segment was excellent, and it really elevated the show. However, upon reviewing it fully, the show is going to get an 8 out of 10, right? Because that Gunter-Cody Rhodes segment is one of the worst ever. And the way that the show ended is specifically really, considering that both of these things happened on the same night, the way the show ended really shows, why Roman Reigns and this storyline is the one that closes the show, and why absolutely nobody cares about the WWE title anymore, or the bullshit make-believe title, which is the same thing as the Intercontinental Championship, right? Basically, there was one title, and Gunter was the Intercontinental Champion. Now there's two titles, and Gunter has just taken that title to try to elevate it, but it's not working out, right? And it's not going to work for the Saudi Arabia thing either. And that's going to be the main event, it looks like, because, Roman Reigns is not flying to Saudi Arabia, quite frankly. I don't think he's going to get paid enough to do that. I don't think he'd do it for any amount of money because he's already made all the money. And it's now it's whatever, man. I'm going to do the things that make sense. I'm not going to go to Saudi Arabia to have a one-off match, right? So there you have it. But who knows? Maybe they do a match for Saudi Arabia, but I guess there's no time. They would have to do it on Smackdown or something, right? But we'll see. Overall, I enjoyed the episode, and that's all I got to say about that, Cucks. It was good. It was good. 8 out of 10 is very, very good on the hater scale. So take care of yourself, cuckolds.